Alright, so CES 2020 was last year. 2020 went quick then. Alright. Hey everyone, so CES 2020 was last week, and there was lots of cool things that happened there, and here I am at home in Queensland, Australia to basically share what I found interesting. Firstly, Lee is making a mini O11 dynamic case, which is very exciting. It's going to be geared towards more ITX builds, but it can hold micro ATX and full-size ATX motherboards. So it's very interesting. It does this by shifting the motherboard plate, or whatever you want to call it. So where you put your motherboard in a PC case, you can shift it so that you can fit the full-size ATX. Apparently they haven't quite figured out the tooling yet for micro ATX, but they're working on it, which is good. According to those that visited CES, the case is quite a large mini ITX case. I believe that it's a 38 litre case. While it is geared towards ITX builds, it's also made for water cooling, where when you have a mini ITX motherboard, you can fit up to 3 280mm radiators. With a micro ATX motherboard, you can fit one 280mm radiator and one 240mm radiator. And with a full-size ATX board, you can fit two 240mm radiators. So there's a lot of options with this case for custom water cooling, no matter really what you go with in terms of motherboard sizing. But it's supposed to be a mini ITX case, so mini ITX for the win then. Asus has announced a few cool things. They've showcased off a mini DTX case for their Crosshair Hero 8, I think, motherboard. I think that's what it's called, which is a mini DTX board for Ryzen 3000. The only motherboard I know of that's mini DTX, but it might fit mini ITX as well. Not like they're all too much difference in sizing, but it's pretty cool looking. Yep, not much more to say about it. But then they also announced the ROG Zephyrus G14, whatever it's called. It's a Zephyrus model. It doesn't look like your typical ROG Republic of Gamers laptop or part, or really anything Republic of Gamers, in all honesty. But yes, the specs are really interesting. It will have a Ryzen 4000 mobile APUs, so it's going to be the Ryzen 7 4800HS, I believe, as well as up to a GTX 2060 graphics card. I think the other option is a 1660 Ti, but don't hold me to that. I could be wrong. Up to 32 gigabytes of RAM at 3200 megahertz, so that's pretty cool actually. 512 gigabytes to 1 terabyte of NVMe storage, which is really good. I believe that it boasts about a 10-hour battery life, and the monitor can either be 1080p or 1440p. Both options do come with a 60Hz refresh rate, or you can get a 1080p display that has a 120Hz refresh rate, I believe. And all panels are validated for adaptive sync. And while that there is awesome, but it's got I believe there's an optional extra that you can have, and it's on the back panel, so the opposite sides to where your display is, where you can't see it basically. And they're calling this option Asus Anime. I think that's what it's calling. So, but what it is, it's this little, I guess, light array. It has a little over 1200 mini LEDs and slightly over 6,000 holes, perforations I think they called it, but they're holes so that the LEDs can shine through at the back panel for the laptop. And you can create your own lighting thing, and you can make it really however you want to by the sounds of it. And don't get me wrong, this is a really cool idea. It looks interesting as hell, but the person buying the laptop isn't going to be able to view it without being unable to use the laptop. So I find it funny when they put features like this, and again, it's really cool, but even like RGB on that side of a laptop, so the opposite side of the screen, where you can't see it. It's just more so there so that other people may enjoy your laptop. Personally, well, again, cool. I think that this is a marketing ploy from Asus. You have this fancy dancy LEDs on your laptop and you're typing away in a shopping center food court, like type, 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 type. And you have someone come up to you and be all like, hey, what's that laptop? I want to get it. Where can I get it from? Tell me what it is. What's it called? So that they can make some more money. Asus, not the other people buying the laptops. But Asus can make some more money by selling these laptops because of this fancy lighting thing. My opinion. I think it's a secret marketing ploy. As a more of a joke thing of, you know what, it would work. But I think the most impressive thing that Asus showed was their monitors. They showed a fair few. But Asus and Nvidia, I guess, have teamed up in a way to release the world's first. And what they've done is a 1080p monitor, 24.5 inch. It's got G-Sync, but it can be overclocked to 360 Hertz, which is huge. I think that they said that the percentage gains in terms of 240 Hertz to 360 is about a 5% performance increase for end user, give or take, which doesn't sound like a lot, and this will be a Halo product. It's going to be definitely more for esport gamers or streamers or people with just way too much money to spend. But they worked it out that with Olympic athletes that the difference could be buying a new pair of shoes, and that gives you that 1 or 2% better chances of winning. That makes you perform just 1 or 2% better, and you've spent a fair bit of money on those shoes. So I think that's how they worked it out of, this is a small percentage that people are going to get out of it in terms of better gameplay, reaction time and whatnot in comparison to a 240 Hertz monitor, I believe is what they're comparing it to. It's worth it because this is how it works for Olympic athletes with their tools of whatever they do. But the monitor won't be cheap by any means. Still very cool though. They did have a lot of other monitors that looked really interesting. Now, last of the big news. Get this one done and then I'll do some, hopefully, quick lightning rounds. I'll get through the rest faster. And I've already touched base with it with Asus's Zephyrus laptop. AMD is bringing out Ryzen 4000 mobile APUs, which is super cool, super epic, super I am combining Team Green and Team Red together, basically. That's not going to happen anytime soon. They have pushed the boundaries again. AMD likes doing this at the moment with their CPUs and APUs. They like to push the boundaries, firstly with the 3950X being the first mainstream CPU with 16 cores and 32 threads. And we've got the 3990X coming out soon, which I'm going to touch base on, which has 64 cores and 128 threads for a HEDT CPU, which is again unheard of. Intel doesn't have anything in their HEDT lineup that matches. And here's AMD again, and they have actually managed to fit 8 cores and 16 threads into a mobile APU. So it's all based on the Zen 2 architecture, so Ryzen 3000. And they've got some pretty impressive clocks, I reckon. I reckon that they're going to be pretty impressive across the board. They've got some charts, I'll show them. But yes, up to 8 threads and 16 cores for both the 15 watt TDP models and the 45 watt TDP models. And from what I can tell, there's not too much difference. The main difference is the base clock. So for the 15 watt 4800U, the base clock is 1800 megahertz. If it was 18,000, that would be spectacular. We're not there yet, but no, 1800 megahertz and a turbo clock of 4.2 gigahertz, so 4200 megahertz, which that's impressive. Don't get me wrong. And for the 45 watt Ryzen 7 4800H, the base clock is 2.9 gigahertz, turboing up to 4.2 gigahertz. So that's mighty impressive. So it's really, from what I can tell, the main thing is that the base clock is going to be different. Maybe the turbo duration is going to be different too, but considering how the Zen 2 CPU, so Ryzen 3000's boosted. It was very GPU-like. It was very much cooling dependent, more so before anything else. As long as these APUs can be cooled effectively, and they're on 7nm, so surely they can figure something out pretty easily. They should do all right in all fairness. And so I believe that they're releasing these APUs this quarter this year. I think they're going to be starting off with about 12 laptops, but at the end of the year they're hoping for 100 or more laptops on AMD Ryzen 4000, which is actually rather interesting. The scales are turning on anything and everything CPU wise, it seems. And like I said, the 3990X is also coming out. I'm not quite sure when. I can't actually remember if a date was given or a time period was given, but it's going to cost a lot considering it's 64 cores and 128 threads. But let's go through some of the specs first. Firstly, it has a total of 288 megabytes of cache, which is cool. I believe it's got the same TDP as the 3970X and the 3960X. I don't get how they figured that out though. Personally, double the cores should really mean a higher TDP, but hey, I can't afford one anyway, who cares? But its clock speeds are 2.9 gigahertz base and a 4.3 gigahertz boost, which 64 cores, that's not bad. Not bad at all, in all fairness. And it's got a whopping price tag. It's gonna cost $3,990 USD, so it's a lot of money. It's about double than what the 3970X costed, which makes sense, as there's double the cores and threads. Or whoever decided to price it just thought, you know what, I don't think that they've heard 3990 enough, so we will price our 3990X at $3,990. So it's either that double the price for double the cores and threads, or no thought was put into the price tag. Although, in all honesty, that's just the American price. I'm worried about the Australian price, because in Australia, the 3970X costs $3,190, which that's a lot of money. So on this, if they're doubling the price, only one way to find out, and that's when the CPU releases, but if they're doubling the price, then here in Australia it's going to cost anywhere from $6,200 to $6,400 recommended retail on that logic. Alright, so the lightning round of news. Sony made a couple of unveilings. The first thing they unveiled, how they put it, I think it was the new, keyword, new PlayStation logo for the PS5, which was predictably PS5. And it looks very, very new. The internet's absolutely loved it. It was a PS4 logo, just the 4 was now a 5. So, brand new. Brand new. What is old shall now be new again, is quite clearly PlayStation's motto. Also, they unveiled a car. Sony unveiled a car. I haven't really looked into much about the car, just Sony showcased the car. So that was a bit weird. My only question is though with this car, and the most important question of it all, who cares about any of the specs? Does it come with a DualShock controller? First and foremost, it should come with a DualShock controller. I reckon I'll get a lot of sales if this car ever comes to market. I believe it's some like concept thing. But DualShock controller Sony, put that with your car. Be like top car manufacturer of the year with just one vehicle. Back to Li and Lee. They appear to have taken a hint from IKEA. I've got no idea if they both originate from the same country or not, but they've taken a hint from IKEA one way or another. And they have basically made a computer case that comes flat packed. I believe it's Li and Lee that's done it. So it comes flat packed, there's lots of pieces, and with lots of pieces they've decided, you know what, you don't have to build your case in any one particular way. We will give instructions on how to, I believe I've given instructions or links to various YouTube videos or instruction sheets online. But we will let you build this case in many different ways. There's many different configurations that you can put this case in. So yeah, that's different. Their daisy chainable fans are basically ready to be sold, which is rather cool. They have pin to pad contacts so that they just basically stack on each other. I think they can do up to 6. And it's a great way of dealing with both your fan cables and your RGB cables. It really neat. Last year, Origin did, they called it the Big O. It wasn't the first time I've done it. The first time I did it was a gaming PC, Xbox 360, and I think PS3. But last year they did another one. They gave it to Unbox Therapy, but it had gaming PC, Xbox One X, PS4 Pro, and a dock for a Nintendo Switch. And I believe it was all water cooled, and it looked awesome. And apparently they had a lot of people coming to them going, we want something like this. If you put something like this together, we will buy it off you. So them and Corsair owns Origin, have teamed up. Again, Corsair owns Origin. It's not really teaming up when you already own them. You just go, hey, we'll tag along and make sure that you're doing your job right. To build, you got 2 options basically. To build this, and you have 2 options. This is going to be an actual retail thing. The first option is a gaming PC with a PS4 Pro, or the other option is a gaming PC with an Xbox One S. Now the Xbox One S model does cost less than the PS4 Pro model, and apparently they weren't able to use an Xbox One X because of some software thing where the Xbox One X requires an optical drive. And the case that they're using doesn't have the space for an optical drive. But it looks really cool. Also, you can get a Elgato capture card, PCIe capture card. And I believe that you can get yourself a SCUF controller as well when you buy the PC console combo thingamabob. So basically, that's all of Corsair's family right there. That's all the companies Corsair owns, and you can own a piece of them all. And then possibly regret your decision later when the next gen consoles come out later at the end of this year. Intel has announced their Ghost Canyon, I believe it's called. No, they've got it in 2 different options. First is a fully built thing that Intel will send you. The other is just the NUC itself, so it's got the CPU, I believe the RAM. I'm not quite sure about storage, but I think it's just the CPU and RAM, nothing else. And you go to another party, like Cooler Master's going to have a enclosure for it. Razer's got an enclosure for it, and you can put your own GPU and whatnot in. By the looks of it, go with the latter option, because how it looks like it is in Intel's fully pre-built thing is that CPU, and it's a laptop CPU by the way, is actually choked really hard, and that Cooler Master and Razer are going to an effort to try and give a gap in between the graphics card and the CPU fan so that the CPU can actually breathe. Breathing is very important. Doesn't matter if you're human or computer parts, air is good for you. And lastly, and maybe in a way most impressively, Alienware has made a portable Switch-like gaming PC. So it's basically a gaming PC version of a Nintendo Switch. It runs off integrated graphics. It doesn't have a dedicated GPU. Might be for the best. Also, from what I've heard, the charging port is on top of the gaming PC instead of the bottom like it is on the Switch. Very nice. And the controllers do actually detach. So it's a Nintendo Switch that's a gaming PC, quite literally. So that's all I have for you. I know that there was a lot more that happened at CES that was really cool and interesting, but I just decided to take some little bits here and there that I found cool and talk about them in this video. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. Don't be afraid to. Don't be afraid to. It's okay. You may hit that like button as hard as you want to. Also, don't forget to subscribe to me. That'll be really cool if you do. And I hope I see you all next time in the next video. See ya.